Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time you're tuning into our podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today to Generational Noor Chasing Hope. So, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you about why Chasing Hope was created. It was created due to our nonprofit organization, Generational Noor, which is an organization that aims to destigmatize the conversation around substance use disorder and mental health in the immigrant and BIPOC communities. My name is Amran. I'm the founder and executive director of Generational Noor. And I grew up in Lewiston, Maine. And I've been in Lewiston, Maine since preschool all the way up to now, actually. And I grew up around youth who were struggling. And I've just watched my peers struggle with substance use disorder and mental health. And I realized that nobody was talking about it. And I realized I wanted to make a difference, and I kind of just wanted to do something in order to shift the narrative and make sure that people were getting the help that they need and deserve, but also that the help that they were getting was culturally competent and helped them in a way that made sure that they were getting resources that were equipped for them and that were long lasting. So we started Generational Noor. It was much just a thought in 2021, and we launched in 2022 September. And then we decided to start community roundtable discussions. We had those discussions in Lewiston and in Portland and in Westbrook. And we also have our Community Connect program where we work on restorative practices, working with schools, trying to get counseling instead of suspension because a lot of youth are struggling and getting suspended detention, suspensions after suspension, which also leads to the school to prison pipeline where youth are just struggling, especially youth of color, and then they have no chance of employment, no chances after school. And we want to stop that because a lot of youth are dying in our communities, and we're trying to just get them the resources that they need and deserve. So, working with schools to make sure that youth are getting second chances instead of getting suspended, they're able to get their work done, work with schools, talk about trauma and first enforced learning is something that's very important, making sure that these teachers are able to talk to these students, because a lot of teachers, especially where I grew up, a lot of the teachers were white and they didn't understand where youth were coming from or what youth had gone through. So finding resources that the youth are able to talk to, because you're not able to talk to somebody who has not been where you are or hasn't walked in your shoes. So making sure that they have those resources. But also, workforce development is a big factor in our Community Connect program, where we work with youth in financial literacy, resume building, job search help, but also networking opportunities. Because growing up, I realized that a lot of youth of color don't have the resources that other youth have, where mom and dad know somebody, so they're able to get you a job or get you an internship. So making sure that these youth are able to get the opportunities that other youth in their grades get. We've been helping them go to networking places, go to job search help, go to college help, but also be able to be in these spaces that they weren't able to be in before. So that's a big part of our Community Connects program. And then we also have been centering mental health, because I think that mental health and substance use disorder definitely go hand in hand. A lot of people start using because they're struggling with mental health. So we're definitely trying to destigmatize the conversation around mental health, especially for youth of color, but also boys and men, because growing up, men are told to not talk about their feelings, not talk about what they're going through, kind of just bottle it up. And we're kind of trying to stop that and make sure that youth are able to talk about what they're going through, talk about trauma, get therapy, because instead of using substances kind of just to numb those feelings, we're trying to highlight that therapy is a thing and trying to destigmatize it in the immigrant and BIPOC communities. So we've been working with youth and also doing mental health groups where we're able to talk about what we've been through, and we're hoping and aiming to push that conversation into spaces where a lot of youth are, but also spaces where parents are, because we feel like for youth to get the help that they need, parents need to learn also, and parents need to understand what their kids are going through and what this generation is going through, because obviously youth here are growing up in different circumstances and different cultures than back home. So parents need to learn and understand what their kids are going through, and just having these raw conversations with youth and parents is very important. Communities don't talk about what they're going through. When they are talking about what they're going through, it's kind of just pushed aside. They're told to man up, and we're trying to stop that. And a lot of youth are using substances kind of just to numb the pain, because they're told not to talk about what is happening in their lives, what trauma they have been through. And we're trying to make sure that youth don't have to go through that. They have these outlets that they're able to get. We're able to make sure that they have a community surrounding them, because at the end of the day, it's a community effort. We should be here for each other, helping each other, and working together to make sure that more youth are not lost to substances, more youth are not lost to mental health issues. They're able to get the help that they need and deserve. We're able to get them culturally competent help that they need. So that kind of leads me to our Generational Noor Road to Recovery, where we're working with different community organizations, because a lot of the resources in Maine, with Maine being mainly white, are not culturally competent. They're not in languages that people understand. Usually when people go and get help, they don't are not able to work with providers, because the providers don't know the language that the person speaks. So there's language barriers. So we're trying to work with different organizations and different providers to make sure that they're culturally competent, they get culturally sensitive training and treatment. People are able to get culturally sensitive treatment and are able to learn about substance use disorder, but also that mosques, churches are able to learn more about substance use disorder. They're able to learn about preventative measures, able to talk to their youth, able to learn that substance use disorder is a disease. It's not just a choice. It is the choice the first time someone uses it, but after, people don't realize that people don't realize that some people are susceptible to being addicted to these substances, which is something that we're trying to make sure that people learn. So we're trying to change how parents and the community view people, and how substance use disorder and mental health is viewed, and making sure that people are able to get help that they need from providers, and that providers are able to refer people to culturally competent help, and make sure that everybody gets the help that they need and deserve. And we also, like I said, have our community roundtable discussions where we have guest speakers come. We have peer support trainings, and that's where we have raw conversations amongst the community. So this is where we're able to learn preventative measures, have counselors come in. We're actually having a community roundtable discussions at Lewiston High School, at University of Southern Maine, and also at our office at 83 Chestnut Street if you ever want to stop in. And we've been trying to use evidence-based research dialogue questions, but with these conversations not being had before, it's kind of hard to get the resources and the questions and the statistics that are needed. So we've been working with different collaborators, such as this Church of Safe Injection, University of Southern Maine, and just DHHS, Maine Care Services, and just trying to make sure that all these resources are culturally competent, but also making sure that the people in our community get the resources that they need that are more culturally competent.
Chime in real quick. I love that you're talking about generational Noor, Amran. By the way, my name is Mohammed Amin,
Yeah.
helping out with the podcast. Could you talk a little bit about why you started this podcast and what your intentions and goals for this podcast are?
Yes, of course. So, this podcast is for those who are unable to come to our community events and community conversations, But also for those who are able to go to those conversations, we're able to just shift the narrative back to the BIPOC community by highlighting BIPOC voices. We're going to be having youth and professionals come in and have discussions regarding their experiences around mental health in the opioid epidemic, because I feel like resources, especially within Maine being a white state, are very white centered. And we aim to just shift that and make sure that our resources are for the BIPOC and immigrant community. We're kind of just giving power back to those who are struggling. So we're going to have people who've been through substance use disorder come here, but also people who have had family members struggle with substance use disorder, survivors. So basically, the topics will be about experiences, but also we're gonna have professionals come in and ask questions and answer questions. So we're hoping to have a youth-centered conversation where we're gonna have youth talk about what they've been through, what has happened in their communities growing up as BIPOC and youth in Lewiston, Portland, Maine in general. We're hoping to have a parent conversation. We're going to have parents who have grown up in Maine, but also have raised their children in Maine come here and talk about what they've been through, the difference between the cultures, the shift, etc. We're going to have a generational trauma episode where we're going to have people talk about the difference between growing up here, but also when parents come here, they don't understand that the trauma that they're bringing, it usually goes down to the kids. And kids are struggling with trauma, but they don't know how to work with that. And then we're going to have a women's and mental health episodes, stigma in the Somali community, school to prison pipeline, survivors episode where we're going to have amazing guest speakers, Farhia Dahir and Abdurrahman Warsame. If you don't know them, Farhia is from Minnesota. She's the first ever female Somali alcohol and drug counselor and peer recovery specialist, and she's a leader in the substance use disorder and recovery field. She's a founder of NIA Recovery, which is an initiative of the first recovery organization in Minnesota and is the nation's first provider of services to Minnesota's East African and Muslim community. She's someone that I definitely look up to because she talks about her experiences, but also makes sure that the people in her community get help that they need and deserve. And then we're also hoping to get Abdurrahman Warsame, who is the author of an amazing poetry book, Addict to Advocate, which chronicles his journey to recovery. And he is also the founder of Generation Hope in Minnesota, which is an organization he founded with a group of youth who've lost friends to drugs and overdoses. And I think what they're doing is pretty amazing because they took their experiences and highlighted what they've been through and kind of just pushed it and made sure that they helped the community because they realized they were struggling, but also the people in their community were struggling too. So they decided to advocate for that and make sure that they got the needs and the, the help that they need and deserve. And we're also hoping to get a few people from the CDC to come and talk about stats and numbers because looking at statistics when it comes to those struggling with overdoses and substance use disorder, it's kind of harder to see the death rates that are happening. So gradually, I realized throughout the years they don't have stats that are specific to specific communities. The earliest they have is 2020, where they talk about the overdeath rates of Black people and also Native Americans, etc. But that's the closest. We don't see other years. And I think they just started doing the numbers because it goes back to that culture of not telling people what you're going through, especially in the Muslim and immigrant BIPOC Somali community. A lot of people don't talk about what they're going through, or if someone passes, they usually just say, oh, they passed because something happened, like they died in their sleep. They don't say what happened or that the person died of an overdose. So it kind of makes it harder to get stats, and usually there's no. So like for our community roundtable discussions, we've been trying to get evidence-based data And there's not a lot of that because it goes back to the stigma of nobody talking about it. And that's what we're trying to highlight here at Gen Noor and also highlight at Generational Noor Chasing Hope.
So you talked a little bit about what we're planning on doing.
Yes.
How can a listener or a person who's heard of Genor reach out and get involved with us?
So we have an Instagram. Follow us at our Instagram at Generational Noor, Noor. Check out our website, www.generationalnoor.com or .org. We own both platforms. If you're interested in being a part of the podcast or want to tell your story, make sure to message us on our Instagram. You can email me at amran.osman@generationalnoor.com, or you can even message us in our Instagram DMs, and you can even message me directly at Narma Namaso 1998 NARMA NAMSO 1998 on Instagram, or Generational Noor on Instagram. And if you want to stay anonymous and ask questions, just highlight that in your email, message, DM, and we'll make sure to keep you anonymous. Make you're able to ask any questions, have any questions or concerns. You can always reach out to us. We're always available. If you want to come on the podcast again, reach out. But also, I went through who we're hoping to have on the podcast that are already scheduled. So if you have any questions for them, please reach out. Any questions, concerns that you want us to bring up.